Welcome back to the Halloween Haunt, your source for ghoulish history, traditions, haunted poems, and stories. And here he is, your favorite creep, the Halloween Haunter.
If you're like me, there's not a more ideal dinner companion than Frankenstein's creation. Some would say monster. He's a very good listener and doesn't interrupt when you're weighing in on important issues, like how to truly scare children when they come to your door without scarring them for life. Did you know that Frankenstein's monster is nearly 200 years old? That's right. Mary Shelley first published the story of the good doctor and his son way back in 1818. Imagine, they had no cars, no electricity, they barely had come up with engines for ships, and this lady thought up the ultimate science fiction story. A man creates life where there was only death. Oh yes, this lady, quite unusual for the time. Mary Shelley was quite unusual herself. She was the wife of Percy Shelley, a famous British poet, and she hobnobbed and hung out with Britain's intellectual elite, like another famous poet you should have heard of, Lord Byron. The creature of Mary Shelley's imagination came from a dream, with a heavy dose of the philosophy of scientists and other intellectuals. She was at the Switzerland house of Lord Byron with her boyfriend Percy one stormy weekend in 1816, where ghost stories were being read. Lord Byron said something like, "Hey everybody, why doesn't everybody try writing one?" And 19-year-old Mary came up with the beginnings of Frankenstein, which would be published 2 years later, anonymously. Mary was a bit scandalous herself. Her boyfriend Percy was married when she met him at 15 years old, and she married Percy 2 weeks after his wife drowned. Suspicious, no. The original story did not have the electrical storm and all the machinery creating the monster. In fact, she didn't really give a method, leaving it all up to the reader's imagination. But, like the movies we're all familiar with, Victor Frankenstein did find the parts in graveyards. I don't want to spoil the story, which is a Gothic masterpiece, but you may be surprised to know that the original creature spoke eloquently and had a complex moral code. The story, besides being a Gothic novel and early science fiction, was an allegory about man's science overreaching into areas best handled by a higher power. There were staged versions of the story as early as 1823. The first filmed version of the story came in 1910, produced by Edison Studios. Yes, Thomas Edison's company. The most famous version is the 1931 Universal film, starring that great, Grinchy actor Boris Karloff, forever ruining the name Boris for children, I'm afraid. That movie changed many details, and the details would morph more in later versions, including all the sequels, and the Hammer series, which started in 1957 and ended in 1974, with the monster being played by the body of Darth Vader himself, David Prowse. Don't forget 1957's I Was a Teenage Frankenstein, a follow-up to I Was a Teenage Werewolf. The Japanese Frankenstein Conquers the World. 1985's The Bride, starring Sting as Dr. Charles Frankenstein and the lovely Jennifer Beals as the creature's bride. And Mary Shelley's Frankenstein from 1990, starring Robert De Niro as the creature. And that's just scratching the surface. There have been many, many versions, just like Dracula. And of course, Many of those versions feature the creature and Dracula. Please go to halloweenhaunt.wordpress.com for much more about the poor creature who never seemed to find happiness.